Probably the most important thing, don't ever feed him after midnight.
Billy, what are these things?
How come a cute little guy like this can turn into 1,000 ugly monsters?
Well, it's December now, which means that the Christmas season is in full swing, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not much of a Christmas person. I don't really care to decorate. I don't like Christmas music at all. That's also from years of working in retail, but still, I don't have any kids to buy presents for and have that kind of fun holiday season experience. I also hate being cold, which means I hate all months that are associated with winter. I guess you could say I'm a little bit of a Scrooge, but I'm going to try to break that feeling and be a little bit more festive this year, so I thought I would review some of my favorite Christmas movies. So of course, I'm going to talk about Gremlins. What? Gremlins is a Christmas movie. The whole film is caked with a Christmas aesthetic. It takes place around Christmas Eve, and the entire plot is started when Billy receives a Christmas gift from his dad. It's a Christmas movie, with awesome little puppet monsters that are wreaking havoc on an unsuspecting town, causing mischief, attacking people, getting wasted, and watching Snow White. The original Snow White, not whatever this is supposed to be. I have always loved Gremlins since I was a little kid, and I watched this movie when I was really young. It came out in 1984, and I wasn't born until 89, but I had to have seen this movie around 5 or 6 years old when I first saw it. And for some reason, I was absolutely captivated by it and fell in love with this film. I kind of consider this movie to be a family horror film, if there is such a thing. It's got a lot of fun, cute, whimsical aspects to it. Gizmo is just adorable. The movie's filled with humor, and it has memorable, upstanding characters that are trying to do the right thing. But it also is about a horde of monsters that are attacking a town. It strikes a balance where I think it's wholesome enough that most kids would be okay with it, but it also has a bit of an edge. Like when the humans need to fight back and kill the gremlins, they really need to kill them. The gremlins are stabbed, they're beheaded, exploded in a microwave with guts flying everywhere. It's silly and obviously fake, but for a kid, it can be a little intense. And I do consider it to be a bit of a horror movie because of these reasons. And honestly, unless you count the scary sequences in Jurassic Park or the Godzilla films, I could honestly say that Gremlins was pretty much my first gateway into horror films. The idea of a gremlin was originally conceived in the 1920s and further expanded upon in the 1940s during World War II. It was a way to explain odd malfunctions that were happening on fighter planes, as if there was a little creature inside the plane that was tampering with the parts and causing it to break down. This is even mentioned by one of the characters, Mr. Futterman, early on in the film. It was also portrayed in other media, like this classic Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Could that have been a gremlin? It ain't Vendel Vilkey!
And of course, the iconic Twilight Zone episode that stars William Shatner. He plays a passenger on a plane that is the only one noticing this hairy creature on the wing tearing the plane apart. And of course, this episode was remade in the film version of The Twilight Zone, making the gremlin look a little bit more intimidating to say the least. Also, my nerdy brain just has to mention that the director of Gremlins, Joe Dante, was one of the directors on the Twilight Zone movie, but he did not direct the Gremlins episode. For the movie, writer Chris Columbus and director Joe Dante expanded on the idea of these mischievous little devils and took it to new highs. In this version, they don't start out as gremlins, they start out as mogwai, fluffy, adorable, intelligent, funny little creatures. But actually, the word mogwai translates to devil in Cantonese. They're magical creatures, and they're meant to be a bit of a cautionary tale, basically showcasing humanity's need to control things and not follow directions. The main mogwai character is Gizmo, and Gizmo is so cool. He sings, he reads comic books, he watches movies and imitates them, and he can kind of speak at times. He's the ultimate hero of the movie, and just so adorable that everybody that watches this film wishes they had a Gizmo as a friend. In the beginning, a struggling inventor buys Gizmo as a Christmas gift for his son Billy, and he's given 3 warnings. That Mogwais hate bright lights and sunlight will kill them, you can't get them wet or have them come in contact with water, and you can't feed them after midnight. And you know, even as a kid, I always question these rules. The sunlight thing, okay, sure, makes enough sense. It's kind of like a vampire, I guess. The water thing, though, I guess Mogwai just never drink anything because everything is made with water, and even a lot of food has water and moisture in it. So does that count? Does that not count? I don't know, but the main thing is the no eating after midnight. It's just absurd. What does that even mean? It's always after midnight somewhere. And what about daylight savings time? And whose clock are they going by? Because everyone's clock is like a minute ahead or a minute slow. And at what point can you start feeding them again? Do you feed them again at sunrise? Is there a specific time where you can't feed them and can feed them? Why not just say, don't feed them after sunset? That would make a little bit more sense. You can't feed them in the dark. Okay, but not feeding them after midnight specifically? But at the end of the day, does it really matter? No. We're watching a movie about magical little monsters that want to fuck shit up. They cocoon themselves into what looks like eggs from the Alien movie to transform into the most chaotic, lunatic-like monstrosities that you've ever seen in your life. In other words, don't think too deeply about it. Just have fun with it.
I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself. That goes for you all, too. Yes.
And what I really want to talk about is the first Gremlin attack scene, and the fact that Billy's mom is an absolute unit here, and she deserves a ton of credit. Think about this. You're just an average housewife baking some Christmas cookies for your family, and now your entire home is filled with green monsters with sharp teeth that have cruel intentions. What does Billy's mom do? Does she run for cover? No. She shoves one of them right into the blender and turns it on, splattering blood everywhere. Then she grabs a kitchen knife and stabs the shit out of another one. Yeah, it's a straight up brutal massacre in the kitchen. She uses a TV dinner table as a shield, she sprays another one in the face, throws him in the microwave, blowing his ass up, and all I'm saying is that Billy's mom steps up to the plate and almost single-handedly ended the gremlin crisis before it got too huge. It's only when she's ambushed by the gremlin in the Christmas tree that she finally goes down until Billy is able to show up and save her. But in one fell swoop, Billy's mom almost killed all of the gremlins. That is a high-quality woman right there, and I will hear no slander against Billy's mom ever. One of the most badass characters in the history of cinema. Another thing I want to comment on is, of course, the puppetry and special effects in this film. They are just fantastic. They went above and beyond, and it definitely shows. I'm so glad this movie came out before the advent of CGI, and that this movie hasn't been remade yet, because you know they would CGI all the gremlins. The technical craft of bringing the gremlins to life really pays off here, and it is a absolute demonstration of the value of practical effects. They're expressive, they're funny, and they're terrifying all in one package. The standout scene is, of course, when they're all partying in the tavern. Hands down, the best moment in the film, and proves that no one parties as hard as the Gremlins do. It goes from them smoking and drinking to firing off guns, hanging from the ceiling fans, flashing in a trench coat, 80s workout montages. It's just the best. And of course, in typical horror movie fashion, there are cliches, but in a fun way. Like when Billy is trying to convince the police officers that monsters are on the loose and they don't believe him. And hey, one of the cops is played by Jonathan Banks. Yeah, Mike Ehrmantraut himself from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And you know what else? Gremlins takes place in a town called Kingston Falls in Pennsylvania. Mike was a former Philly police officer, meaning that he's from Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's it. I'm calling it canon. This is Mike Ehrmantraut in his early days of police work, and I have no doubt that after experiencing this gremlin bullshit, that's what influenced him to become a criminal. I'll talk about some of the other characters too. There's of course the main protagonist, Billy himself, that's just a wholesome lead protagonist, just trying to do the right thing, working a dead-end job and also dreaming of becoming an artist. He's relatable, although not terribly complex. He's just a genuine, kind dude. Then you have Phoebe Cates, who plays Kate, the girl that Billy has a crush on, and someone who despises Christmas for reasons I'll get into in a moment. Some side characters, you have Mr. Futterman, played by Dick Miller. He's the one that believes in Gremlins early on, but no one really takes him seriously because he's an old drunk that's always talking about how much better American-made appliances are, opposed to foreign ones. You have the 80s staple of Corey Feldman being in the movie as Billy's friend Pete. He doesn't really do a whole lot, but is it really an 80s classic without Corey Feldman? I think not. Throughout the 80s, Corey Feldman fought against gremlins, vampires, and Jason Voorhees. That means he's an 80s legend in my book. Finally, we got Billy's cruel, evil boss, Mrs. Deagle, who just fantasizes about torturing dogs. She's super fucked up. She's basically the movie's human villain, and she does get what she deserves. Now, there's also this scene. Okay, despite all of the gremlins, the darkest and most messed up scene in the movie by far is when Phoebe Cates' character delivers this monologue about why she hates Christmas, and it involves her dad dressing up as Santa Claus, falling down the chimney, and breaking his neck, not being discovered until several days later. This moment comes out of nowhere, and in a movie that is so fun and silly and over the top, and right after the bar scene, this movie just drops this morbid story on all of us, and I'm all for good character backstories and tragedy and all that, but this completely wipes the mood away from the rest of the movie and just leaves you feeling all kinds of uncomfortable. In that aspect, I mean, the scene works great, but as a kid watching this was the most depressing shit I'd ever heard in my life, and as an adult, it still kinda is. Then there's another massive tonal shift when it cuts to the gremlins watching Snow White. And the main gremlin enemy is named Stripe because of the stripe on his head. Final confrontation with him in the department store is pretty intense. He uses all kinds of weapons against Billy, including a crossbow and even a chainsaw. And this always scared me as a kid, especially when he throws the saw blades at him. But what's great about it is Stripe is treated as a legitimate threat. The movie has elements of danger, and seeing Billy get hurt lets you know that the stakes are real. It reminds you that even though the gremlins are really funny, they're still monsters, and they might kill the main characters if they're not careful. But then there's also the scene of Stripe riding the bike that always makes me laugh. But Gizmo is actually the one to save the day, opening the skylight, and the special effects of Stripe rotting away into a disgusting melting skeleton is all of the best kinds of 80s practical effects that you could possibly want. Gremlins was, of course, incredibly popular and marketable, but because of it getting pretty dark and violent at times, it's actually considered to be one of the main films to inspire the creation of the PG-13 rating. It was released as PG, and some parents were not too happy about taking their kids to it. To them, I have to say, stop having such pansy kids then. But that's another story. You would think that a movie like Gremlins would be ripe for franchise material, but there was only one Gremlins sequel in Gremlins 2: The New Batch, which is also an incredible film, but for completely different reasons, and I would love to get into that on a later date if you guys like this video. But anyway, the original Gremlins is a Christmas staple for me. I usually watch it every year sometime in December, and it gives me so much nostalgia from my childhood. It's also one of the few Christmas movies I actually really love, and I'll probably come back to it every year for as long as I live. It's got great fun characters, amazing monster effects, Gizmo is adorable, Billy's mom is a badass, all with the backdrop of a snow-covered town during Christmas Eve. What more could you ask for the holiday season? So let me know what you guys think of Gremlins. Do you have nostalgic childhood memories for this movie like I do, or have you never seen it before? Because the older I get, I realize some of these classics just kind of start to fade away, and that's a damn shame. So I recommend watch Gremlins this Christmas. It might turn out to be your favorite Christmas movie. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up and a comment down below to help it out in the algorithm. Hope you guys are having a good December. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, check the links below for my Patreon, channel membership, and all the social media links where you can follow me. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.